You know, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and usually I kind of want to reserve judgment and not think that somebody is trying to do something that's incredibly immoral on purpose. And usually I try to think, well, they don't know, or, you know, people in business are only in it for the money, so it's not like they even really understand what they're doing. But every once in a while, I think people just cross the line, and today I'm going to cover one of those kind of situations that I think is just way over the line. Hey everybody, welcome back to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal. Today I'm going to be doing a video talking about what I consider to be just outright propaganda and basically like lies being propagated through the mainstream media, straight out of the animal agriculture industry basically, and the people in in positions of power, the people who own these companies, and kind of the lengths that they're willing to go to at the expense of people's lives, basically, to prop up their businesses and try and get people to consume their products. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Join me. I'm going to be showing you guys some interesting articles, and you can make up your own mind and let me know what you think, if this is a case of propaganda or if it's just a case of somebody not really knowing what they're doing and they're just kind of peddling their business, and they don't really understand the ramifications. So let's get into it. Okay, so I was on Twitter today, and this really got me riled up. I was on somebody's post, and it was basically like a vegan post. Herbivore Club, shout out to Herbivore Club. They are on YouTube as well, so I'm going to put a link to their channel. Check it out, and if you're on Twitter, go give a follow there as well. But there was a post by Herbivore Club, and somebody who is a surprise, dairy and cattle farmer basically posted a kind of anti-vegan response message to the original post, basically linking in some ridiculous story where they're literally relying upon a single doctor's opinion, and they're writing this fluff piece about how this particular doctor, some Danish doctor, insists that a vegan diet can lead to severe and lasting mental retardation in children, and it's very, very dangerous for children, and blah blah blah. And they're basically just talking complete nonsense and saying how vitamin B12 is going to be obviously deficient in the vegan diet, and et cetera, et cetera. So I replied to this person's post, and I just said, it's interesting that this is just one person and is obviously a quack and doesn't know what they're talking about, and it is the position of the largest body of nutrition and dietitian experts in the world, which is the American Dietetics Association, although they go by a different name now, but that's what everyone kind of knows them as. Their position is that a vegan diet can be appropriate for all stages of life. And when I posted this, the person replied back with a link to this study. So I started looking at this, and the headline is quite bold, as you can see: eating cheese and butter every day linked to living longer. And I was like, wow, that's pretty shocking. I wonder how they got that. So I started reading the details. They analyzed over 130,000 people in almost 24 countries, and they found that basically those eating the equivalent of one serving of full-fat milk or yogurt, a 15-gram, which is a 0.6 ounce slice of cheese, or a teaspoon of butter could benefit health. And then they followed these people, and they're basically juxtaposing the kind of the standard recommendation from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, where they're making a dietary recommendation for people to eat low-fat and or fat-free, and they're saying, like, this study is basically saying the opposite, that the full-fat dairy is protective and will actually avoid getting heart disease or premature death. And I started reading this, and it's like, wow, it sounds really kind of crazy. They have all these volunteers. Their ages are varied, and they're across different countries and all this kind of stuff. And they're following up in the people who ate the higher levels of dairy. So here it is. Those who ate more than 2 servings of dairy per day, 1 to 2 servings, 1 serving, and no dairy at all. And they had better outcomes. And the thing is, this sounded really familiar, because I was like, man, I could almost swear I remember the name of this study, this PURE study. That's what they were calling it, Prospective Urban Rural Epidemiological Study. And I started getting into the details, and it very quickly became obvious like what's going on here. This study was an observational study, and they purposely chose to observe only certain things in the diets, and in the countries that they picked, they basically were comparing some of the richest countries in the world with some of the poorest countries in the world. And they didn't do a comparison like within the same country. So they didn't look at like who ate the most cheese like in the US, what kind of heart disease rates, what kind of death rates did they have versus people who didn't eat cheese in the US. No, they compared people who ate a lot of cheese, which is basically the people in the U.S., and they outlived the people who ate the least cheese, which are the people who live in some of the poorest countries in the world. So, and then the Americans like outlived the people living in the really poor countries. This is like the most ridiculous design of a study that I can imagine. They literally just took what is obviously a longer life expectancy for a more developed country with better standards of care and better access to food, and even just people who like suffer a heart attack, better access to care, and then they compared it to people living in an area of the world where maybe they're literally starving to death or have all these other kind of problems, and then they just said like, oh look, it's the cheese. They could have just as easily picked something else. They could have said, look, the people who ate most Twinkies outlived those who didn't, because I'm pretty sure like some of the countries they picked in like, developing areas like in Africa, they probably don't eat as many Twinkies and they lived less. Like this is the most ridiculous, like poorly designed study that I could imagine. And, I started looking into it, and then I was like, I swear I've seen this study before. And lo and behold, yes, this study came out like over a year ago and it made the headlines. And I remembered that Mike the Vegan did a video on it. And I highly recommend everybody watch this video if you haven't seen it. It's called Low-Fat Diets Could Kill You, Poor Study or Poor Study. And sorry, Pure Study or Poor Study. Check it out. He basically talks a lot about kind of more detail than what I've just kind of tried to summarize. And the reason I'm making a video about this is not to rehash the same kind of debunking of this ridiculous study. It's just the fact that I got upset that this was published like just now. So if you look at this got published in September of this year. They're literally trotting out the same study a year later. If you look at when Mike did his video, this was September of last year. So they're literally taking the same study, waiting a year, probably hoping that all the kind of, people who debunked it kind of forget about the debunking, and then they're pulling it out again and putting a slightly different headline on it, and they're rerunning the same story. And if you search this headline, eating cheese and butter every day linked to living longer, you will see a plethora of stories that are being run again. So you can see, the one that I just showed you here from September. There's another one from another site, Elite Daily, saying the same thing. There is another one, I don't know when this date is, but probably, okay, they're just referencing the Newsweek article. So, but again, just another one. Here's another one from, this was probably the original one from last year, 2017. Here's another one, Eureka Alert. They're trotting it out again in September of this year, and the news goes on and on and on. Here's another one, Business Insider, also telling you in August of this year about how you can live a longer life by eating cheese and full-fat dairy. So I rest my case here. I definitely wanted you guys to see this because it is just kind of shocking to me that this kind of stuff gets away and goes under the radar. I don't think most people realize that a lot of these things are just being rehashed and reused the same way. And then a lot of other studies will probably use this study in, a meta-analysis or something like that. And this is just how the animal agriculture industry works. They fund these ridiculous, poorly designed studies that don't show anything, and nothing of value is actually obtained from this type of study. And then they will go and use this to basically tell you that saturated fat is fine to eat. You have no problems eating it. It won't affect your heart. In fact, if anything, you should be eating more of it because it'll make you live longer. And this is the part that really kind of just ticked me off with this. Because if you read this, here it is. Cheese is healthy for the heart. It's like they're telling you the literal opposite of the truth. And people are going to read this and be like, wow, great, I can eat more cheese. They're literally killing people with this advice. And it's kind of funny that we got Jason here on the side. These people are, this is like beyond, like, I don't even know, like, it's just beyond the pale. I cannot understand how somebody can push this kind of, science or news or whatever with a clear conscience. I mean, I understand people need to make money. I understand people are going to, do like kind of like slightly unethical things or bending the rules or twisting things a little bit or whatever. But like, I really have to wonder, somebody putting together either this study or the people who write about this. I mean, clearly they're doing it because they have their sponsors. They have the people who support them. They have the people who pay the bills and the ads in their print, magazines or their online, ads. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm flabbergasted. I don't know. Basically, that's the video. I just wanted to show you guys how this kind of stuff works. And this is ubiquitous. I mean, this happens all the time. And the first person I think that got me hip to this was actually Dr. Greger. Because in one of his videos, he showed how basically, the meat and dairy and egg industry do this all the time. They will literally take a study, they'll fund it, they'll pull up some quack science like this, poorly designed, no baseline measurements for cholesterol or, anything like that. They'll like take out that same study 2 or 3 years later. They'll do a meta-analysis, which includes the previously, this poorly designed study, and they just keep doing this, And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So I just wanted to show you guys that the dairy and meat industry is alive and well, and they're pushing this kind of stuff on the unwitting masses. So hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up, share it with somebody. If you're upset by this, let me know, like, if you've seen similar kind of things. This person that I pointed this out to on Twitter then literally went and found me a different news source of the first article that they pointed out that vegan diets, will cause like mental problems. And I replied back to the person saying, hey, do you realize that you've literally pulled the same exact story as like a new piece of information because it's from a different site, but it's referencing the exact same thing. I just don't even know, like, somebody like that, are they just trolling, or are they that, like, they're not comprehending the reading? Like they're just seeing the headline, oh, copy paste, they're sending me the link. Like, oh, I refuted the vegan. Done. It's like your reading comprehension is like non-existent. Anyway, sorry for the rant, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Bye.